Okay, well, so just a brief story of what we've been doing in my team. Our team is called AI FELIX. And FELIX, we obviously in military, we love acronyms. So has a name, front-end learning information execution. But what that was actually FELIX, a US Navy sailor that was doing a very repetitive and manual work in our command. What he was doing is every command has a registry. They have to process incoming correspondence from official NATO sites. And they would have essentially two screens, Outlook on one screen, and then a SharePoint site on another screen. And they would have to download the documents from the Outlook and get them there, and then put metadata so that information can be funneled through our system. So what we did is we added our first application, what we call the command report. That was an NLP application. And what we achieved with that was reducing 80% of our processing time. Very quickly, we realized that everyone had the same problem. So when COVID hit 2020, our sister command, Allied Command Operations in Mons in Belgium, they had the same problem. They had only 25% money, but they still had to do the same work. So we quickly deployed there. We did the independent verification and validation to the security accreditation and so on. But quickly we realized that we could move this to other applications. So we have tasking workflow in NATO. Essentially, any official document has to go through multiple approval steps, revision, inputs, and so on. So we added the NLP engine in there with exam question. Can we predict what are the odds that we will be late in a specific tasker? And then can we turn the question and ask ourselves, what can we do to avoid that from happening? We then moved to what we call the knowledge women, which is essentially an assistant, Netflix of documents, if you will. And then we moved on to doing one of the things that is the hardest thing in government, which is crossing the valley of death, which is how do you get from an MVP into a full-blown capability? And I have a lot of scars with that. Hopefully, this year we have these 3 applications, full-blown, for the whole NATO commander structure, serving all our warfighters. And so what we are doing right now is remaining up there in the classified AI experimentation. Like on the commercial world, the innovation is astounding. It's just unbelievable. So we're just trying to get the best of breed and get that on our classified systems. We have new applications, and we're also working with some nations so that they can apply our system. So here's a quick recap of the applications we developed since 2019. The first one, essentially, we had a natural language processing auto-tagging engine. There's one thing that we learned is people would rather die 1,000 deaths than putting metadata on documents, right? So what we did is we added this NLP engine to process MS products, PowerPoint, Excel, Word documents, PDF, and extract metadata and automate that whole distribution of documents. Then we moved on to tasking. So we're talking workflows, trying to predict real time, what are the odds of things being on time, bottleneck resources, and so on. And then with knowledge women, one of the critical things that we realized, our third application, was data fusion. Rather in government, normally, these big applications get pushed down the throat of people, and that doesn't work. So what we did is, instead of asking everyone to come to our application, we will go to everybody else's applications, get their data, and become the one-stop shop, where we show all the information to users, and we have a personalized daily digest. Everyone's getting a daily email, 3 documents tailored to your specific job skills, your knowledge, but it's dynamic. As you change your job, as you like and dislike documents, it's adapting to you. This is one of the things that our users are really most happy about. And then obviously, ChatGPT happens, and they're like, okay, we need to do something about it. So in April last year, we shifted gears and we started implementing our own ChatGPT, so to speak, on our classified system. The funny thing, which I'm going to talk about a little bit today, is about the lessons learned from going through this process. Our first prototype was ready in May. We went to production in December, and we're finding all sorts of challenges in this process. So here's our product vision. It's much more than a chatbot. We have the chatbot, yes. We have a RAG pipeline. We have processed over 300,000 documents at all classification levels, right? And for us, it's critical that need to know needs to be respected. We can only provide information that is really tailored to your access level. So for us, obviously, RAG was a critical and important feature that needed there. For us, the exam question is, how can we provide the right information to the right people at the right time? NATO, we and the DoD is the same thing. We are absolute machines of producing documents every day. There are new policies every day. It is impossible to catch up. So what we need is this RAG system to provide us meaningful and accurate information for our users. Not only that, but also in NATO, we use essentially almost like case law. So when you're working on a project, that project is serving a command strategy. And this command strategy is serving another command strategy, or is serving right now, as we speak, there is a NATO summit happening in Washington. They will set the NATO strategy for the years to come. We will be following all of that strategy throughout cascading down. So essentially, we need to trace what we're doing here all the way to how this is serving our overall strategy. We also want to be more collaborative. In NATO, documents are not like single author. There's many, many people interacting. So what we need is to get people to be more productive and be able to generate this content. So in a quick glimpse, we are big fans of open source. That gives us more transparency. We've built everything in containers, so we can just quickly swap models as they become available. For us, the critical thing is we need to benefit users now. If NATO and the DoD, if we do not provide the tools that people see on their home or industry, people will try to use ChatGPT and other tools in an unauthorized manner. So we need to provide a response so that users have the things that they see in their daily life. It cannot be that the gap between what they have in their phone and what they have in their workstation is huge. We need to close that gap. And then for us, we are remaining at the edge, not on the technology itself. We're a little bit behind, obviously. But what we remain at the edge is using this in the classified realm in defense. For us, it's critical. We have what we call the NATO principles of responsible use of AI, which we abide by. And it's critical that we have this accountability and transparency throughout the process. And another interesting thing is NATO and the DoD and across the alliance, officials are trying to provide now guidance and regulation for generative AI. But the people who are doing that, in most cases, they don't have experience. They don't hit the ground running. And so what we're doing is we're encountering many, many tactical issues, such as when you ask a question and maybe you don't have access to the document that has the answer. Should we tell you that there is a document or not? Questions like this are completely out of scope of what the normal security policies that we have in our framework. So that needs to be updated, but there needs to be a good connection between the people doing the policymaking and the actual people delivering the applications so that they don't hamper us and that they make relevant policy for this. So now I would like to move on to the actual really crux of this talk, which is our lessons learned. So as I mentioned, we deployed our first prototype in May last year. We gave a presentation to the 4-star general in ACT and many, many stars. And they were very impressed. They loved it and it was great. That was the demo. Then that took us, until December to get full-blown into production. But here's the thing that we all really need to bear in mind. Gen AI is real. This has changed completely the picture. There are issues We are early. We're probably internet 1995, right? But that's going to change everything. If you've read, The Singularity is Near, Ray Kurzweil, he still sticks by his prediction that AGI by 2029. That sounds about right? We're getting better and better every year. It's just like you cannot even keep up with the new models, right? So the direction of travel is very clear. The models are getting better. The enablement is getting there. We need to now close the gap and realize those promises from Gen AI. So yes, we're a long way from AGI. And here the critical thing is the G of general. But we already have on a specific use cases the ability to make really good progress. So there's great utility from the systems. We need to be more focused on the use cases so that we can actually deliver on the quality. This is a dual use technology. And there's, absolute geopolitical competition for resources, for talent, for the best models. That's going to drive the next 10 years. Absolutely. There's a little bit of a gap. I read the Sequoia paper about the $600 billion question. All this built up in infrastructure, but where's the revenue, right? So where is this 10x productivity? We are not there yet. We are getting close in specific things, but all these fear mongering of everyone's going to lose their jobs has not happened, right? There will be creative destruction of jobs and people changing how they work, but we are not there yet. 2024 is supposed to be the year of enterprise adoption, but 2025 will also be the year of enterprise adoption, and so on. And just like cloud, it will take years. But one critical thing here that we can see already, AI in its form is already changing the character of work. This is already happening in Ukraine. Autonomous systems, that's really the game in town. Swarms, all types of new autonomous systems that are really changing how we, as an alliance, will need to operate in the future. Edge computing, with these new drones and so on, you can get very small models working on a small drone, so you can actually do vision recognition on site. You don't need to be connected. So if your communications are impaired, you don't need to worry about that. And then the other interesting thing is, in military, normally there has been this huge focus on the hardware, right? We're moving on to a software world in which software can completely change and enable the new capabilities of systems. So having, just like in your Tesla, you get the upgrade, and now you can have like your heating in your seats. That's already hardware. You get the subscription. Now you had heat in your seats. That's a little bit unfair if you ask me. But the same kind of mindset is happening right now. I was reading very recently, this is public, that in Ukraine, they are changing the software of many of these drones every 2 weeks because the countermeasures are evolving constantly. So it's really a software game happening right now. So that's really what is happening now and what will be happening in the next few years. Now, I would like to use here one of the mottos of the SEALs, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. What does this mean? What this means is that when you are a beginner, you have to go slow to learn. As you get better and better and better, you become smooth. And when you're smooth, you can then become fast and be proficient. So one of the things that I'm sure that many of you have had the same experience, when you do a demo, everyone is mind blown. That is great. But when you get to production, that's a whole new level. The expectations are huge, and they are commensurate to the hype of this technology. So people expect SME quality from these systems. That is extremely hard to do. So we rushed to do the prototype, But now, okay, we need to realize value for our user. For that is time saved. Telling users things that they don't know. And is, not only things that they don't know, things that they don't know that they didn't know, right? The quality, that is absolutely critical. We need to get better and better. So RAG is not enough. You need knowledge graphs, you need corrective RAG, you need all sorts of guardrails to make sure that you're providing absolutely top-notch, accurate answers. And AI has to be easier to use. I have a whole garage with prompt engineering. Unless we start getting better and getting assistance for users are not following. Very few users actually know, general users know how to actually prompt correctly. When we get AI to be as easy to use as Word or Excel, that's when we would know that we will have made it. So, and we also need to achieve these benefits of automation, which means that the production cases need to work, need to be consistent, so that we are not constantly debugging. So for us, and coming back to this model, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, we are shifting gears. We have a production system, has been running since December, and now we are being, we have the whole set of features. We are now focusing on getting the accuracy better and the quality much better. So we're really shifting gears. We need to be much better for users to really follow. And for DoD and defense, even though some, the technology is not quite there yet in some things, we need to build this muscle as an organization because change is happening. And it's first going to be gradual until it becomes like absolutely sudden. So we need to build this muscle in our system. So this graph that you see here, I had to remove the numbers here, but to give you a sense, this is like pretty much almost like the Pareto law. 85% of our questions are done by 15% of our users. We have our super users, huge fans. They are early adopters. They really love the system. They are using it every day. They are extracting value. Then we have occasional users that, are using it a little bit, but we don't have them quite there yet. And then what really keeps me up at night is, these bottom 50, the lost users. So what happens there is they are not good at making prompts. Then they get bad answers, and then we're losing them. And then the kind of questions that they ask is not just good for RAG. It's like, what documents use X policy? Or when was this X policy superseded by another one? So you need the agents there, and you need other systems for this. We all thought, okay, let's get the ChatGPT on the high side. Everyone's going to love it. Well, not quite. People need training. Users need training. We need to explain where AI is good versus bad. The prompt engineering, we need to make that better. So we are using prompt conditioning. We have now a robot icon that essentially users can click on that and rephrases their question. Because normally they make not very good questions. So we rephrase it in a way that is better tuned to the LLM so they get better answers. We're also proposing follow-up questions, better tuned so that they kind of learn. So use the UX to help people learn how to do prompting. So we are not quite there yet. We're like 80, 85%. We need to get this 100%. The expectations are really, really high. When you're working in defense, there's this principle of need to know. You have your security clearance and your need to know. So when we have our RAG pipeline, we need to check for every time you ask a question, whether you have access to those references. So that means that two people with different accesses will get different responses. And that's an absolutely critical thing, which policy doesn't really have, it has not caught up yet. So, and there's obviously the poisoning risk and other, adversarial AI, that's a whole topic of another call, talk. And when you work with government, one of the issues is data maturity is very low. We are Wars are run with Excel and PowerPoint, like, believe me. So we have information silos. People are very deliberate about this. Lack of metadata. Again, people would rather die than put in metadata on documents. Single source of truth. Who is owning the data versus who is consuming the data? Sometimes it's not clear. And it's a very ungrateful task to curate data, right? Interoperability between tools. There's a great opportunity for agents, but when you're talking defense, you're talking older applications, legacy applications. So making those agents work, that's a critical aspect. And then you have to adapt to the information and knowledge management ecosystem. People use email. People use Excel. People use PowerPoint. Make things that work with that, right? And then one of the things that I've seen again and again, the polar ice caps will melt before users clean their data. Do not expect people to clean their data. Use AI to help clean the data, right? So that's one of the things that is, we should be using AI while still our data is not great, and then help use AI to help us on that. And then as I was building this presentation, I thought, okay, I'm going to do the typical thing, just going to do an image to inspire people and so on, and what we're doing and so on. So it's like, okay, let's get the mountain here. There's a climber, and we're really, this is the Gen AI promise. Okay, so I'm just enriching more the prompt. Let's see if you guys spot the issue. Okay, we're getting better, not quite. Okay, so I continue, and then, okay, I want a Sherpa. That's a robot. And then I continue, and it's like, yeah, not quite. I'm adding things, and then it's like, I don't know what happened here. Like, there's these planes. Please remove them, right? Okay, not quite. Yeah, I continue. I make this a little bit better. It's getting better. Please, for God's sake, remove the planes. Where did they come from? What's going on in here? And then, by the way, this one is very cool. So I continue, and I stopped here. I stopped. So me as a fan of Gen AI, I know what's happening here. I would have to redo the prompt again, forget my context window, and then do it again. But what users see here is, why are there these plates? It's lying to me. It's saying that there are no plates. While we have this happening, the adoption is going to be completely slowed down. Because the critical thing here is people need this consistency. And what this is telling me is great. There's a great promise right there. We are in this journey, but we need to get this better. So quickly, what is the summit that we need to climb for this to really pop? So hallucinations, absolutely. And we've seen the keynote there. There's a lot of work going on. We need to get much better. The non-deterministic outputs, that freaks out a lot of people, inconsistency. And then limited reasoning abilities. People, can learn how to drive very quickly, but, level 5 autonomy is still, 2 years away, right? And then very quickly, the tyranny of the use case is actually a good tyranny in this case. We need to be laser focused on use cases. Think about in a big enterprise, the number of use cases is larger than the number of employees. So we need to focus on the things that are really worth solving for a broad amount of people. And then in DoD and government, processes are critical. Chatbot is not a great interface, if I'm honest. People are not really reacting very well, but they love personalized dashboards. And especially if those dashboards align with their processes. And then connecting different data sources, that's a winning strategy. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much. If you have any question.
Thanks, Anna. Any questions? Yep.
It's a really interesting presentation. Background, I've worked a little bit at the VA, so I understand the data fragmentation side of it. There is a challenging part to that though, because there's a lot of open source tools that are like ESPY and Gorilla that are here today that are optimizing a lot of the prompting, for automating a lot of the workflows between applications by actually tuning agent to interact with applications. What challenges are you seeing with deploying some of these open source tools in this deliberately fragmented and siloed environment? Because I imagine these tools are useful, but it might be difficult if you can't share certain data sets or certain applications with one division to another because they are operations centers, for example. So, can you help enlighten how that process is going?
Right. Absolutely. So, quick thing, we use whatever metadata is available, but we enrich it with our own. We have our own embedding. We have our own metadata generation. We go to the other people's tools with whatever access the user has. If a user has access to 5 tools, we use the user access to go to these 5 tools to get whatever information they can normally get. And it's just a matter of convincing the security folks that, hey, the user can do it, and the LLM should go and be able to do that. So that's the kind of process that we're following here, using the user credentials to access the systems and the data that they should normally have access to.
We had another question right here.
So your slide about, the obstacles to adoption, you've got the hallucination and all that, those are all very interesting issues. I'm surprised that you didn't have security and privacy as part of it. Do you rope that into one of these categories, or do you think that's not important to, at least your use cases?
No, the reason why, so these are more generic, like almost in the commercial world. I already had like this slide on, the need to know versus need to share. Yes, we are obsessed with security. And I can tell you that with our cybersecurity folks and security people, I talk with them very, very frequently. And when I was telling them, hey, we're gonna process 300,000 documents in NATO. What do you mean? Right. And yes, we're going to have this in a database. It's like that database that needs to be absolutely secure, and how we manage all of that. So no, that's a critical aspect for the security world. That's why I had that specific slide.
We have time for one more question.
You mentioned the data inflection strategy. Do you find most of your data can be batched, or is it like streamed?
So we are not interconnected with the databases. So we have to go fetch it every day. We have our own task schedule to go to all these tools and get, what's new? And then start getting that, catalog it, put it in our system, and then make it available. And that helps, coming back to your question on the cybersecurity. Tapping it straight on the database, that's a no-no.